Well, hello everyone. Today, I hope you're ready to learn about education. I hope you guys are excited to take time out of your lives that are probably filled with lots of school to listen to this podcast about it this episode. And I'm here with Jonathan Hinman.
That's right.
And
he's ready for more school.
He's ready for more. And I could tell he likes school because for many who might not know, he wears glasses. And he's wearing glasses right now. He looks like he's ready for school. But before we get into it, I just wanted to talk really quick. We've been reading the comments, and there's a lot of people asking, rightfully so. You know, we haven't talked about the obvious absence of Gabriel. He's, it's suddenly, one of the balls is missing. So I just want to address it here. Nothing. We all kind of around the turn of the year decided that we kind of wanted to focus more on our own individual project. Gabriel's a musician, Jonathan's a writer producer, many other things as well, and then I do what I do, and so we all kind of went into three different directions, and we're all still friends, and we all still love each other, but we definitely are young for only a certain amount of time, and we are living in the city of opportunity when it comes to this business, and so it's like we got to hit the ground running doing what we love, and we all still love each other, and mommy and daddy don't blame any of you. It's none of your fault.
Well, except for a couple of people, and you know who you are,
and you know who you are. Yeah. Because you were a mistake. And but anyways, no, and I appreciate the comments, and we appreciate the concern and the love. This is, when I was in high school, I mean, podcasts weren't even a thing. There was nothing even close to podcasts besides audiobooks and the radio. And or at least maybe you can go online and listen. I don't even remember that.
Yeah, it was a darker place.
Right. And so here kids are, I don't even know where they listen to. They listen on their lunch break, or when they get home, when they go into bed. Like
where do you find the time?
Yeah, where do you find the time to listen to this bullshit? But anyway, the reason I say that is that when I was in high school, or just any kind of school, I was always stubborn. I always made sure to make enough time out of the day, however creatively as possible, to do what I enjoyed doing. I've always been sort of a...
Very wise of you.
Right. I mean, what do you call a hedonist who it's not just the physical, but something who just loves life and everything that it can offer? I was that in school. I just always made sure that my mind was in a nice place all the time, whether that was drawing or, playing video games or writing a story. I used to write all sorts of things. And when the teacher was talking, I'd be either doing one of three things: writing a story, drawing a picture, like a portrait or something that I just liked, or drawing a floor plan. I always draw lots of floor plans to places and
sounds
just
like fun.
Layouts to build. And it wasn't just houses. I would draw floor plans to just like the perfect cafeteria in my eyes is this layout. And I would just get a big creative. And, or like I would do floor plans to campgrounds because we used to go camping a lot. So I'd be like, this is the perfect floor. And then my parents,
for the institution or for sneaking around?
For sneaking around, I think. Yeah. No, but I remember my teachers and my parents, they all thought I was dumb because my grades were always flopped. And the reason my grades flopped was that I just never listened to the teachers at all. When they were talking, as soon as I was no longer interested, I would look at the clock, realize how much time was left, and be like, no way I could do this. And then I'd just tune out. I would just be like, I'm not going to listen to this bitch talk about the Roman the problems that Roman people...
You were not desperate for authority approval.
Not at all. In fact, my childhood, I was authority was a big antagonist in my childhood. Right. It was a very big oppressor. I was very strictly raised. I was the first of my generation, so I had no cousins who were my age or even older. I had no one. I was the oldest of my siblings and my cousins, and so everyone was quite harsh. I mean, it was a very Catholic family. Both my mom and dad's side of the family were strictly Catholic. They both went to the same church before my parents even met, so it was almost like an arranged marriage in a way. My parents went to the same Catholic high school. And then they had me, and I was raised with a lot of these Catholic morals. Yeah, it's disgusting. They had to do intercourse, like sex. So I always kind of resented authority figures because I've always felt like, I wasn't even allowed to say, "Aw, man," because that had like gang slang implications.
Oh, wow.
To be like, "Aw, man," I would get in trouble for saying that shit.
I feel like the same, like I wasn't allowed to do that in kindergarten, and then, and like I wasn't allowed to watch The Simpsons and stuff. It was just like, that's just too, right. And,
and it's like, I think adults forget that kids are really, even though they're dumber and less experienced, your mind still absorbs and really handles situations or the observance of scenarios much like an adult. Even as a kid, I feel like children are a lot more, and I'm not saying kids should be watching anything vulgar. I'm saying that I think that we forget how mature even a child is when they're dissecting a scene from The Simpsons, or like when, it's like, when I was a kid, I watched some pretty raunchy stuff on primetime TV, or even just whatever on TV, movies. I would see scenes, and I remember being mature enough to understand, like, oh yeah, that's bad, or that's very adult what I'm seeing, and that's that. Right. It's like, so in school, the people who I think raised us were a very, and this is just my opinion, but there are a lot of people I know from the generation who raised mine, ours, that they just seem very scared of influence that's without control. And, they're the last authoritative generation before the free world of the internet. And so, right. I feel like we all kind of are a little bit more lenient, but
like, I don't understand what's running the world anymore. If I let you watch this, then I don't understand what's influencing you.
Jonathan, I'm very curious. What we've talked a bit about your childhood. You moved from city to city. You're a military brat, and you're the schooling now, because you're moving from, you're living primarily in these military houses.
These a lot of on base, but sometimes we'd live off base and go to a public school, which was harder for sure. Yeah. But was also kind of sometimes nicer because it promised roots. Like, it felt like, okay, this is a community I can grow with, and these are normal people. This isn't just like I thought everyone was in the military. I didn't realize it was only 1% of the population is in the military. Right. Until later.
Right.
But so
wait, only 1% of the population,
or maybe like 3%, but like a small percent of the.
That just hit me. I'm sorry. That's insane. I didn't realize it was that few.
Yeah,
that we're only guarded by 1% of us.
It's it's probably just a little bit bigger than that, but it's not much. It's really not much.
Terrifying. 1% guards the rest of us.
Everyone else just is inside the compound.
Even a fucking 5%. Imagine if you have a whole stadium of people who don't know each other, and 5% of those people. Let's say there's 500 people. That means that what is that? What's 5% of 500?
25.
25. Okay. Well, I guess that seems kind of big. I should have reduced this analogy.
Yeah. But let's go back to 5 out of 100.
Right. This analogy has hit. Yeah. Right. But anyway, sorry. So you didn't realize at the time, you didn't know that.
That everyone didn't live like that. So it was like refreshing, but also those people didn't like quite understand it. So it was like a new, just being a new kid every year for all the years. It was like 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade. We're all new.
Did you find that you learned ways each time to be the new kid?
Yeah,
like in Groundhog's Day or something. It's
yes,
I can do it differently this time. It's a reset.
100%. I definitely reinvented myself a couple times, but then to be honest, it just got really depressing. It was just like, oh man, again.
Because it's also you're losing all the things you did like from that last school. You're losing, I'm sure, like the friends you would have made, or and that's really tough too, because it almost must make you take the friends you would make a little less seriously, because it's like, well, I'm only going to know you for X 100%. Amount of time.
What's the point of making a new friend that I'm just going to leave in 9 months?
No child should feel like that. That is heartbreaking.
It is. Actually, I didn't realize it was like something I would never do to my kid until later. I was like, damn, I'm not going to do that.
It's heartbreaking, because I feel like as a kid, those are the times you want. Because I had the exact opposite childhood. Everyone I knew when I was very, very young, I still am on Facebook with today. We went to every school. It's almost like relatives. That you grow old with, because you've known these people. Like in high school, I was picked on by people I knew when we were 5. I'm like, dude, we knew each other when we were 5. Why are you a dick to me now? And so I always hate it. And my therapist, what I would always say to my parents, she would always say, he should probably go to a new school because he's labeled as this person who gets made fun of all the time at this school. And my parents, for whatever reason, never transferred me. And so I was just, I always envied the new students because I'm like, you could have been a piece of shit in the school you came from, and everyone here has no clue of your stink. Mm-hmm. And so from that side of the fence, that's kind of how I looked.
And rumors didn't travel fast back in the day from school to school.
Oh, hell no.
Who knows someone from a different school?
The only thing that traveled before the internet were nursery rhymes and patty cake shit where you did like that kind of, or like jokes that were really poo-poo.
I don't know how that transferred cousin to cousin.
Right. Milk, lemonade, you know, and it's like all that stuff. Anyways, So
I feel like that affected your education, just like being somewhere and then being like, kind of like, I know who I am, like, and then feeling the freedom to be like, not going to do this. You know? Yeah. And it just so happens that for me, like moving around a lot, like I kind of just had the schoolwork in some ways where it was like, okay, well, I'll, first things first, like do my homework, impress the teacher in a way.
Yeah. But, that's smart. Yeah. But I see what you're saying though, because I've never actually heard someone flat out lay out the cons of being, or just even talk about having to attend so many schools. I've never really discussed this with anyone in depth. So to me, it's like, it's a concept that I find fascinating that, it's probably even worse than what I had, because at least I had a sense of familiarity my whole life. Even though I got picked on a lot at school, it was by people that like I knew very well, and like it was people that I
and you understood it maybe. You're like I understand. Like you got a chance to connect deep dots, maybe.
And like they couldn't be bad to you all the time, because you'd always see them at birthday parties, or you would always see them at like events, or then when we got into high school, you would see them at like, downtown or at the, whatever restaurants, you'd see them all around. So it's because Livermore was still a very tight knit community. So I think it still is. And so we would just constantly be running into each other. And so it wasn't like here in LA when people are mean to each other. It's like, you never probably will see that asshole again, In Livermore, it's like you are going to see them again. So there was a sense of consequence that and you never feel like what you thought, like, oh, and before long, this is all going to change. My mindset was, this is it. This is forever. These are my family, essentially, in the way of like this. No one leaves this place. And it's kind of true. A lot of people didn't. But yeah, it
forces you to deal. It's like the small town mentality of like, well, we all got to get along.
Kind of, yeah.
In some way, yeah.
And there was only a few schools in Livermore. And so it's like, you only went to like one of three, and even then, like once you get to high school and people start getting cars, though the crowds start to mix between the high schools, and so everyone just if you're then it's not even a matter of what school you go to; it's just how old are you? Oh, do you know this person? Do you know? It's
so funny, and the world gets a little bigger.
The world gets a little or is it smaller because you like meet more of the people?
Both.
Oh my goodness, your social vocabulary, your social repertoire expands, but in a way, the world does seem smaller because you know more of it. Yes, I think, I don't know. I miss high school. I want to say really quick, speaking of school, I've been taking a class this way. I went back to, and I haven't been in a class in over a decade. And but maybe not that long. But it's definitely something that I kind of missed the feeling of. Because when I was in college, in high school, really, I mean, I remember every time I'd be sitting in class, I'd be so inspired. If it was a class I was interested in, then I would be inspired off the material. If it was a class that I found the people interesting, I'd be inspired off of the people. And if it was a class that I didn't find interesting at all, for some reason, being locked in a chair and having to sit for an hour forces me to be creative. And I start either way.
Right. You're like, I got to escape this shit.
Right. And either way, I just think back to who I was in college and high school. College, I was still making theater class, the series, and that I never felt any writer's block with that. I just remember there was the only reason the episodes came out as few and apart. What do you call it? As seldom as they did was because of money. Like we couldn't have, and it was a big cast we had to assemble. But I remember it wasn't because of inability to write. And I remember always being inspired, not just with that series, but any of the videos I made during that time. It's like if I had the resources and money that I have now, I would just be cranking out videos left and right. And I miss that drive. And I really do think that going to school, as much as I say, and the thing I always say is my only regret in my adult life is not dropping out of school sooner. However, I will say that does not mean
to re-enroll in a different class.
Right. Well, what I mean, to that point, just so everyone knows, I went I continued going to school even after I dropped out because I wanted to learn. And I think that's very important to not confuse the whole, what do you call it? The oppression of it all with the purpose of it, which is to put knowledge inside your head. And once you really go to school strictly for that reason, you get so much more nectar out of it.
Right. You're anti the institution and like the state of paying for student loans and going to campus. You're not anti-learning.
See, the thing is, the shitty thing is that, like, I never get political and I never share my opinions on things much greater than my own world. But I feel like I could have advanced so much further if the system was a bit different. Like, I don't like the fact that in order for me to get a degree in communications, I have to take 3 semesters of phys ed, algebra, and like all this other. It's like that's what drove me, because I would never focus in those. Even as an adult in college, I would just tune everything out and I would just write scripts in the middle of the class. I'd be doing storyboards. I would be just thinking of videos or just anything creative. And I'm like, I don't want to, the necessary electives that I had to get through, I just couldn't get through them. And so when I dropped out, I continued for 1 more year, 2 more semesters. I went back and I just asked the teachers, who, by the way, the staff at Las Positas College, the professors there are fucking the nicest people in the world. And like all of them, I had very close relationships with. And nice. I just asked them, like, can I just attend a semester or 2 of your course? Just and
they're like, well, it would get me fired, but yes.
Well, I mean, I shouldn't throw anyone under the, maybe that, well, you know what? I haven't said any names, right? So, but they and they did, they let me attend the class. And I told them I just want to learn how to do it. And even the dean was super cool. Like I think the dean even knew that I wasn't enrolled in that school. But I went and I took a video production class. I took a bunch of writing courses. I took a speech and debate course, a lot of acting, improv. I just took all the things that I needed to make better videos. And then once I kind of got what I needed, then that's sort of, I just decided that school, I learned everything I wanted to learn at that point. Right. So anyways, the point I'm trying to make overall is that I think that if you are interested in something, school is amazing if you can get what you're trying to learn out of it for the bigger picture of your end game.
Yeah. And that's also a good lesson. Just like if you can, like if you're really interested in a class and there's a pro tip for those of you going to college, like if you really want to take a class, even if it's full, like reach out to the professor, see if you can just attend. And if you can't do any of that, if there's no path that gets you into that class, then look at the books that people are supposed to buy for that class. And read the books.
Right. Read the books.
That's most of it.
I mean, yeah, if you can't find the class, you can find the information. That's also the thing. I think people are afraid to do. Like for me, I hate doing research because I just associate it with, I got to do this by midnight because like there's already this bad stigma of researching things that I hate. But if I'm genuinely interested in something, I find like, oh my God, it's been 3 hours and I've been researching something like, and, and it's like, so it's like a matter of also removing a certain stigma just from education. Like for me, I just hated learning things I didn't want to learn. I hated it so much. I hate it so much. But as an adult, we don't have to learn anything we don't want to learn. That's the great thing. It does make racists, but it's a great element of being a grown up. We have the freedom of learning or not learning whatever we do or don't want to learn. So the reason I brought all that up was because I'm taking a class this week, and I miss the way that, like I just mentioned, school pushed me to be creative. Whether I liked the class or I didn't like the class, either way, I was a more creative person because I was somewhere. I didn't necessarily want to be learning things I wouldn't have otherwise learned if I didn't go. And you
have someone there saying like, "Oh, you're scared to go to this place."
Right.
That's where you're going. So you're challenged.
The course that I took was it's a clown workshop. I've been wanting to take clowning for a very long time. Not clowning like it is and it isn't the same type of clowning you're thinking of with the white face paint. The original, like the first clowns were in the circus in like 100-something years ago, and I think it was unintentional. These guys that were wearing the wrong outfits, that they were janitors or something, and they didn't, their clothes were dirty and they were washing. The only thing they had to wear was like these silly costumes that were laying around. and they were sweeping, and they walked out, and the audience cheered. They thought it was part of the show. And so the janitors, one was really tall, thin. Yeah, one was really tall and thin, and one was really short and fat. So the janitors kind of... Classic, right? Classic shapes. The comedicest two shapes of people. Yeah. And so...
Dick and round.
Right. And so they walked out in front of everyone, and everyone cheered. Everyone was and they just went with it, and they just kept doing the whole point of clowning. What I learned was it's just to make people laugh. If it doesn't make them laugh, you try something new. If it does make them laugh, you do it again. And one of my great heroes, Sacha Baron Cohen, took clowning under the professor, the same professor who taught my instructor, and so I'm learning very, very similar techniques. And as my teacher's talking. I'm like, but this is before I knew this, by the way. I'm like, this dude is behaving just like Sacha Baron Cohen. There's a very similar element. And then he, after the first course, I asked him like, oh, who did you study under? And he told me, and I Googled this guy, and sure enough. And so it's like a lot of these techniques I recognize in his work as well. And, anyways, the whole experience of being back in a class.
That's fantastic.
Ultimately, what I want to say is that it just feels it's so refreshing. It's so refreshing to be in a room with students who are also trying to learn the same thing. I forgot what it's like to go up on stage with a person and do a scene in front of a class and then be evaluated on the scene after the scene is over. And it's really harsh because they'll say like. The class will discuss what they found funny and also what they found not funny, and during your scene. And this is all improv. It's all improv. There's no script because the whole point is to go out on stage and make someone laugh. So you're graded on how much the class laughed at you. And if they didn't laugh that much, then if heaven forbid, if you do a scene where no one laughs, because then your whole evaluation afterward is let's discuss why no one laughed during this whole thing and talk about why you weren't funny. Right. So it really is very humbling, and I'm learning so much in this course. And it's very empowering because I've learned, I just got really stoned one day. I'm sitting in class, high out of my mind, listening to this guy, and I'm thinking to myself, this class is teaching us to be unafraid of humiliation. And what's crazy, what I put together in this moment, and I don't know if it was something the teacher was saying or if I just put two and two together sitting in class, but I suddenly realized, and mind you, a realization I wouldn't have had if I wasn't in a class. If I wasn't attending a class, I wouldn't have had this realization. But we hold ourselves back from so much, as Jim Carrey said in that speech, because we're afraid, or I forget how he worded it, but the point was like we often don't do what we're very capable of doing because we don't think we can, because we're afraid to, or we're scared of the outcome. And what I realized during this course, what clicked, was that we're not afraid of necessarily doing the thing. We're afraid of the possibility of failing, and therefore we're afraid of, and through that we are afraid of humiliation. I think that's the true thing, is that we're afraid of, especially when as performers specifically, we're afraid of humiliation, and we're afraid of feeling embarrassed. 100%. Not really the fear of failing itself. We're afraid of that's going to be really embarrassing if I fail. Because if there's no one in the room and you fail, then you're not really going to care. But if the room's full of people, you're embarrassed now because no one laughed at your joke or no one applauded you. You feel embarrassed. I think that's really what we're afraid of.
And I think that a lot of people feel that across other fields, where it's like, I didn't want to start that company, I didn't want to try this project, I didn't want to...
Because if they fail, imagine the humiliation, everyone's going to know
they're so embarrassed.
Right. And what this class is teaching us is to not be embarrassed. Because when we watch someone else fail, we don't think, well, maybe sometimes we do if it's really bad. But overall, if you see someone, it's like, you didn't really think that didn't really like kill you to watch them do that. So it's like when you're on stage and it's like they want to see you succeed, but at the same time, it's like they know when you feel like you failed and when you feel unconfident, because the audience wants you to feel confident. And when you fail, the audience isn't wanting you to stay down. They want to see you get confident again and come back up and be funny. And so anyways, this class is just... And I recommend anyone who is out of college, graduated college, dropped out of college, anyone who is living a life where they are not in school. If there is something you want to learn and you are able to find a Groupon or some deal for like a really awesome class that fits your budget, fits your interests, fucking take it. If you have the time and you can afford it, there's no reason not to do it. Like just whatever you're interested in, especially if you live in LA, New York, any metropolitan area, It's like there are courses for anything you could think of.
Even if you're doing an online course, just like learn about what you want to learn about.
I took David Mamet's. I tell you this all the time because I'm always bragging about it because I'm so privileged. I took this course. No, but I thought it was very, very helpful. The master class, those online courses. Mm-hmm. I don't really see them. I don't really see them advertised anymore that much. And they're not sponsoring this, just FYI. But I took the David Mamet.
But Jonathan Hinman's masterclass is sponsoring it.
But David Mamet's dramatic writing course. If anyone is into creative writing or any just kind of writing about a script and a story, a hero's journey, a 3-act arc, XYZ, I highly recommend it. I took that course and went right in. It was right when Stuff and Sam started to get good. I felt a lot more inspired. Well, no, I don't think I'm not accrediting it because all of us we all kind of felt that show out.
No, but also Stuff and Sam was always good.
Stuff and Sam was always good, but I really remember using a lot of what I learned for because Sam, I never thought of him as a hero character or I never thought of him as someone who can carry the hero's journey, and I remember taking that course in the winter last year and having all these sudden realizations where oh, Sam must go through this to he must accomplished this hurdle. And even to this day, I still, and not just from David Mamet, but just from any writing teacher I've had, I fucking call back to things all the time. Like when I was in 9th grade, what is that? Sophomore? No.
Freshman.
That's freshman. Yeah.
freshman, bro.
When I know, it's been so long, I forgot the grade numbers and correlations to the words. But, no, to the man words or the more words. Anyways, when I was a freshman, I took
to know that.
fucking Mark Cabasino, my English teacher, he was a creative writing teacher. He was a very, very insightful guy. And I remember because of him, I never write endings where it simply ends only on the character waking up and it's over. Because I remember he hated it so much when everything was just a dream. Because he was like, that discredited everything we've invested our emotions into. And ever since, so even that little comment from way back in the day, I hold on to everything all my teachers say that I really click with. And I hope if you guys are trying to learn something that is, I don't know, that's sort of your end game, something you eventually want to, if it's what you want to do for the rest of your life, then fucking go, get educated on it. Because even if you think, because there are times where I feel like I know everything. I feel like I'm oh, and then I remember I take a course like this and I'm like, I know so little.
It's like when you experience something, it's like, well, this institution or this authority figure is stupid. Then that makes you kind of throw out the whole process. You're like, well, God damn it, this whole thing is stupid. I know everything then, I guess.
You know what? Oh, sorry.
But you rob yourself of the experience to grow from someone else.
I will say, if I've had a few bad teachers like that in the past, and what I do take from them is, how would I do this differently? What's my way of doing this? And it still gets me to think.
Well, that's good. And that's good. And that's a good mindset to have.
Because if most of the classes I've been taking, are all sort of synonymous with what I love doing. And so if I disagree with what the teacher says, I would never confront I don't know how students that confront teachers, I don't know how they get the balls to do that. That always gives me so much anxiety when I'm sitting in a classroom and someone confronts the teacher. I'm like, oh God. But when I do disagree with what a teacher is saying, I do enjoy debating in my own mind and thinking for myself for a bit. Do I agree with what they're saying or not? Especially if you're taking a class that's about something creative, like an art class or something. It's so hard to create rules and parameters. So I don't know. I like that even if I don't agree with the teacher, that it does still. I still consider that element because ultimately the teacher is likely way more experienced in that specific thing than you are. That's why you're taking the class. So I think that, and it's almost a bit of letting go. You kind of have to let go of ego a bit and just sort of, especially if it's something you already think you're good at. Like if you and I were to take a writing course, we've done a lot of writing in our adult life. To go back to school for something we feel like we've done so much of in our adulthood, I don't know, there's sort of a natural feeling of I know everything. And it's just letting go of that and just letting the teacher, being open to that. I don't know.
There's so much content in what you're talking about. It's like, what is the content that you're actually learning? What is the actual lesson that you have? But then there's also the process that you're applying, just like you're talking about with your clowning class. It's like regardless of what the teacher said, the act of you doing something and then it either lands or doesn't, and then having that discussed is exploratory for you and is a good review process where you just get to try, hypothesize and analyze,
Mm-hmm.
And that's true for all classes, even if the teacher sucks. Like there's still and even if you don't like love the actual content, I mean, ideally you do, but no matter what, this is actually a really valuable process of learning. And that's, I think, a hard thing to like appreciate when you only know a life that you've been forced into it.
Yeah.
But when it ends, you start to really value the process. You're like, damn, that was very helpful. I was really growing and learning. Yeah. That was awesome.
When you learn to filter out the pulp of the institution of it all, right? And like, you realize, like, especially classes,
like, never mind the fact that I have to be here.
Right. And when you take classes like this, when you're paying for it out of your own pocket, if the teacher isn't going to care if you don't, you're not, because you've already paid them and the teachers already got their money. They're not going to be upset. It's like, it's on you. You're cheating yourself when you're not attending it. And when you kind of look at it that way, you look at it as something that you're only gaining from.
And you're like, holy shit, I was getting this for free before?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I was getting this for free. Yeah, exactly. And there are certain classes where I'm like, I got a damn good creative writing class for free. Right. For free. And like, and it blows my mind because Mark Cavazzino, I have to say his name again. He pushed me and pushed me and pushed me and I took him all 4 years of high school, all 4 years. I took him willingly. He was an elective for me and that I didn't have to take. And because he made you feel so good when you had a good story. Like and he would have us read it in front of the class and we would discuss everything, like why the story was good. And like the techniques I learned in that course, it's like I got 4 years of a fucking master class of creative writing for free that the government paid for. That's so cool to me. Yeah. And so I definitely I hope to anyone who's still in high school listening to this, if there is a class that you do love, like really try and get as much out of it as you can. Cause it's, I wish going back, no, actually, you know what? No, I liked how I did it because when
this episode.
Well, no, I do like how I did it because the classes I was interested in, I focused and I fucking passed with I never got anything less than an A in a class that I loved. Mm-hmm. But it's I also had to take them on the same days as classes that I hated. Right. So it was going from creative writing to PE to theater class to algebra to, and it's my emotions can't take that. I can't, it's hard. It's hard. And I did all that without weed. You know that? I did all that without weed.
The fuck were you
thinking?
Was
sober my entire educative career. Oh God, that's going to go on my gravestone. That's yeah. Anyways, Jonathan, I want to say it looks like class is coming.
Shit.
Class is coming toward an end here.
Wait, I want to say one thing.
Yeah.
I just want to say one thing. Is that when you're talking about your clowning class, it's really thematically the big takeaway here for me is don't be afraid to be embarrassed, and don't be afraid to learn. I feel like my biggest actual regret about school, just in general, not that that is full of regrets, but it was I wish I'd asked more questions because there were plenty of times where I was an introvert, I was a new kid moving around a lot, and I learned a ton, and I loved reading the book, but I didn't like talking, in class, and I always really appreciated when kids would ask questions
because you didn't have to ask it then.
Yeah, I was like, oh, good. I was wondering that, and then of course sometimes someone asked someone who's like, oh, that's a dumb question. They just covered that, and screw you for thinking that.
Fuck those kids because those kids are the reason why I never asked questions because I was afraid. Because I wouldn't listen to everything. So I could have missed it. I don't know, but I do have a question.
Right, and I'm sure that sometimes someone asked a question. I was like, oh, good question. Someone else was like, he just covered that dumb question. Here I am thinking
that kid.
Right.
I hate that kid because I know the kid you're talking. Yeah, we just covered that. Because they would say it across the room, and the teacher wouldn't do anything. In fact, if it was a fucking dumbass teacher, they would be like, "Yeah, we did." And wow, everyone's.
I hate my job and I hate you. Right.
Everyone's teaming up on me. I don't even know you people. No, I hate that.
Asking questions is like the best thing you can do. Stay curious. Don't be afraid of looking stupid asking questions. You learn, don't cheat yourself.
And you know what I also noticed? Okay, I looked really dumb there was a moment, I just want to say this because this goes right with what you're talking about. There was a moment where I was fucking up in a scene. The teacher I was not making them laugh. And then once I lost the confidence on stage, I was struggling to get the confidence back, and no one was laughing because they could read in my face that I was like, fuck, I'm fucking the scene up. And so then the teacher just like dismantled me on stage. And by the way, the teacher was extra harsh on me because he knew who I was when I walked in the door on the first day. So he was like, oh, and let's see if this guy with his millions of followers can make these people who have no idea who he is laugh. Let's see if he deserves these followers, guys, huh? And so it's like already I'm like, you know, I'm already kind of embarrassed.
But he pushes you right there.
Just like, and so I'm on stage, and he's just like tearing me apart. But then we hit lunch, and I go to each person because there's a cafe right outside the classroom, and so everyone's kind of eating lunch, and I kind of sit and talk with each person, as many people as I can, kind of chat with in the hour break. And I kind of I had this sense when we broke for lunch that the class hated me, or that the class thought I was stupid, or like the class only knew me as, oh, he's probably one of those social media people. He's not even funny in real life. Ha ha. And I just had all these negative thoughts in my head, like everyone hates me. And so during lunch, I just kind of made it a point to talk to everyone. I bought and I wasn't trying to win them over, but I was like, sure, I'll buy you. Like, come on, who wants a coffee? And then I ordered a few people a coffee, chatted with them for a bit. Went over and sat down, chatted with this girl eating a salad for a little bit, went around chat. And and then afterward, I just realized that they don't hate me. Like they really like me actually. Like they're really nice. And I realized that like the teacher was because the teacher was also like dismantling other people too. And so I didn't take it personally from the teacher at all.
Right.
But I felt like...
And it's like, this is the voice of your fear.
Exactly. Now it's like I confronted the voice of my fear by indirectly confronting the people. I didn't confront them. I just talked with them and kind of realized they don't hate me. And in fact, they were very... And then like as more classes went on, they in fact, we warmed up with each other, started exchanging the grams, and started going out to lunch or dinner after the class. And so... I don't know. I think that and if I didn't go and talk to them, I would probably still think that, what's that?
Exchanging grams.
Right. And yeah. And I just feel like if I didn't make the effort to go talk to them, I wouldn't have... It's like in those movies where you see a point in decision split in time, and like you see one storyline where someone made the decision and one storyline where they didn't. I feel like in the version where I didn't talk to all those people, I would have thought they would have hated me, and I would have sat in the back of the class and really not talked to anyone, and would have done every scene after that just with no confidence.
And then just gotten hit by a bus on your way out.
Got hit by a bus and da-da-da-da.
And woken up. That was just a dream.
Woken up, and then I woke up dead. And then there's the version where I did go talk to them, and because I talked to them, the next day I came to class feeling like, oh, I'm walking into a room of my friends. And then I was really confident in my first scene that morning. I got a bunch of laughs. Everyone was clapping. I went to... It's like... Because I confronted that fear of embarrassment, I'm embarrassed that they saw me bomb on stage. They don't like me. And I feel that more often than not, even with my own friends, sometimes I feel like some of my friends might be angry at me, and then I'll see them at a party and I realize, oh, they're not angry at all. Like that was all in my head. Right. And so I often, and maybe that's just me, but I have a really bad problem of feeling like people hate me, or feeling like I have offended someone, or feeling like I'm always apologizing, and I'm always like afraid that I've done something wrong. And I feel like when I just confront these irrational fears, I'm like, oh no, I'm just overthinking everything. And so to that Jonathan's point, yes, I think overall, if you take anything from this, don't be embarrassed. And I think for learning, you have to almost humble yourself a bit, because by taking a class to begin with, you're admitting that you don't know, that you know less than a person in the room. And about something. You're admitting that the person standing in front of you that you gave money to knows more than you. And you just have to and you can always tell the students who think they know more than the teacher, especially in LA, in any of these courses, you can always tell when a student.
And guess how much that person grew.
Yeah, right. Exactly. You're not going to grow if you already feel like you're too big for the class.
Right.
You almost, and even if you do feel like you're too big for the class, because I've been to classes where I feel like, I'm way more experienced than these people, and that'll happen sometimes. But I still think you should be open because you'll still be.
You can learn something from anyone.
You can learn something from anything. The teacher learns something from every class they teach. So it's like
right. So there you have it. So you can definitely learn something from the teacher.
So, anyways, that is my views on education. I'm really glad we said that because in interviews, people sometimes ask me about education or college or stuff, and I always kind of have this really bleak outlook on it up front, but I never really get to explain it.
Right.
And it's not really the education itself; it's just the institution of it. Right. Like I said, it's just how mandated. It's not as simple as
it all sucks.
Right. We're not necessarily teaching kids why we're learning this. We're teaching them that they have to learn it. Right. And it's let's if you really put it into real life and understand how this is going to benefit you when you get older, because they're our future. And to quote Lindsay Naegle from The Simpsons, "Children are our future. Today is for me." Who, by the way, I based the CEO. I don't know if you know Lindsay Naegle from The Simpsons. She's like the corporate woman from every corporate entity, but she's totally who I based the CEO's voice off of.
I didn't know that.
She's my favorite Simpsons character. Anyways, guys, I hope you learned something from this podcast. Jonathan, I learned something about you from you,
and I learned about you.
Oh my word!
And I learned about me.
We grew a little bit.
Wow! And not just there.
not just in the no. All right, guys. I hope you're having a great time wherever you're doing. Hope you're doing it safely, and hope you're learning constantly. Have a great time, and class dismissed.